Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Whether you've had a day filled with moments you'd rather forget, or perhaps one sprinkled with memories you hope will last forever, this video is made just for you. Tonight, we're embarking on a gentle journey through one of the most extraordinary landscapes your mind creates every single day, the intricate, mysterious, and surprisingly fragile world of memory. But before we begin our quiet exploration, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what's the very first memory that comes to mind right now? Is it something from earlier today? Or perhaps a childhood moment that feels as vivid as if it happened yesterday? Maybe it's the smell of your grandmother's kitchen, or the feeling of sand between your toes on a summer afternoon. If you find comfort in these sleepy scientific wanderings, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave this video a gentle like and perhaps subscribed to join our growing community of curious dreamers. It helps other sleepy scientists discover this peaceful corner of the internet, and it means I can keep creating these soft journeys through the wonders of our universe. Now, I do hope this exploration isn't so fascinating that it keeps you awake, though if it does, at least you'll drift off knowing a little more about the extraordinary machine between your ears. Not such a terrible trade, really. So settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's take a slow, thoughtful stroll through the remarkable science of how we store the past. Memory is one of those things we use constantly but rarely think about until it fails us. You walk into a room and forget why you came. You bump into someone whose face seems familiar, but their name hovers just out of reach like a word on the tip of your tongue. You can recite every lyric to a song from decades ago, yet somehow misplace your keys 3 times in one morning. What exactly is going on up there? The truth is, memory isn't like a filing cabinet or a computer hard drive where information sits neatly organized, waiting to be retrieved exactly as it was stored. Instead, it's more like a living, breathing ecosystem, constantly changing, adapting, and sometimes playing tricks on us in the most delightful and puzzling ways. It's a process so complex that even after decades of research, neuroscientists are still uncovering new secrets about how we remember, why we forget, and what makes some moments stick, while others fade like morning mist. Let's start with something wonderfully simple, yet profound. Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is performing an extraordinary feat. It's taking the sound waves reaching your ears, converting them into electrical signals, weaving them together with your existing knowledge, and creating not just understanding, but a memory of this very moment. In a few hours, when someone asks what you did tonight, you might say you listened to a video about memory. That simple statement represents millions of neurons working in harmony, connecting experiences across time. But here's where it gets beautifully strange. The memory you'll have of this moment won't be a perfect recording. It will be your brain's interpretation, colored by your mood, your attention, your previous experiences, and even what happens to you later tonight. Memory, you see, is less like a photograph and more like a painting created by an artist who keeps adding new brushstrokes every time they look at the canvas. To understand how this remarkable process works, we need to take a gentle journey into the landscape of your mind. Imagine, if you will, that your brain is like a vast library, but not the quiet, orderly kind you might picture. This library is alive with constant activity. Books are being written, edited, and rewritten. Some volumes are consulted daily and kept near the front desk, their pages worn soft from frequent reading. Others are stored in distant wings, gathering dust until some unexpected moment brings them back into the light. The librarians in this magical place are your neurons, billions of them connected by trillions of pathways called synapses. When you experience something new, these neural librarians spring into action. They don't simply file away a single book about the experience. Instead, they create multiple copies, store them in different sections, and create an intricate cross-referencing system that links this new memory to countless others. Let's follow a memory as it forms. Imagine you're walking through a garden on a warm spring evening. The scent of jasmine fills the air, birds are singing their twilight songs, and golden sunlight filters through the leaves. This seemingly simple experience activates multiple regions of your brain simultaneously. Your visual cortex processes the colors and shapes, your auditory cortex captures the bird songs, your olfactory system registers the jasmine's perfume, and your emotional centers add a layer of feeling to the whole experience. But the magic doesn't stop there. All of these different aspects of the experience begin to link together through a process that's both elegant and mysterious. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain, acts like a conductor orchestrating this neural symphony. It helps bind together all these separate elements into a cohesive memory, creating what neuroscientists call an engram, a physical trace of the experience, etched into the very structure of your brain. This is where memory reveals one of its most fascinating secrets. You might think that remembering the garden scene would involve accessing a single file stored somewhere in your head, but that's not how it works at all. Instead, remembering is actually a process of reconstruction. When you later recall that spring evening, your brain reactivates many of the same neural pathways that fired during the original experience. The visual cortex lights up again as you picture the golden light. Your olfactory regions stir as you remember the jasmine, and your emotional centers add their warm glow to the recollection. It's as if your brain is putting on a performance, a revival of the original show, but with some of the actors replaced and a few new lines added to the script. This is why memories can feel so vivid and real, yet also why they can change over time. Each time you remember something, you're not just accessing a stored file, you're actively recreating the experience, and in doing so, you might inadvertently edit it. This reconstructive nature of memory explains so many of the curious things we experience. Have you ever had a disagreement with someone about what happened at a shared event? You both remember it differently, and you're both absolutely convinced your version is correct. The wonderful and slightly unsettling truth is that you might both be right, in a way. Your brains have each reconstructed the memory through the lens of your own experiences, emotions, and perspectives. There's something rather poetic about this, isn't there? Our memories aren't perfect recordings of the past, but instead, they're creative interpretations, personal narratives woven from the threads of experience. They're influenced by who we are, what we care about, and even how we're feeling in the moment we remember. In this sense, memory is less about preserving the past and more about creating meaning from it. But let's slow down for a moment and explore the different types of memory your brain creates, because not all memories are made the same way. Neuroscientists have discovered that your mind operates several different memory systems, each with its own purpose and characteristics, like different instruments in an orchestra, each contributing its unique voice to the symphony of your inner life. First, there's what we call sensory memory, the briefest and most fleeting type. This is your brain's way of holding on to sensory information for just long enough to decide whether it's worth paying attention to. Right now, you're probably not consciously aware of the feeling of your clothes against your skin or the sound of air moving through the room, but your sensory memory is registering these details and quickly discarding them as unimportant. It lasts only seconds, sometimes less, like the afterimage you see when you close your eyes after looking at a bright light. Then comes short-term memory, also known as working memory, which is like your mental workspace. This is where you hold information that you're actively thinking about right now. It's what allows you to remember the beginning of this sentence while you're listening to the end of it. Short-term memory can hold about 7 items at once, give or take a few, and without practice or rehearsal, information here fades in about 15 to 30 seconds. It's remarkably limited, yet absolutely essential for thinking, problem-solving, and making sense of the world moment by moment. But the real magic happens when information makes the journey from short-term to long-term memory a process called consolidation. This is where experiences can potentially last a lifetime, woven into the very fabric of who you are. Long-term memory isn't just one thing, though. It's more like a vast mansion with many different rooms, each serving a unique purpose. In one wing of this mansion, you'll find explicit memory, also called declarative memory. This is the type of memory you can consciously access and describe. It includes episodic memories, which are your personal experiences, the stories of your life. The first day of school, your wedding day, the taste of your mother's cooking, the feeling of accomplishment when you learn to ride a bike. These memories have a sense of time and place. They're the chapters in the book of your life. Explicit memory also includes semantic memory, which contains your knowledge about the world. This is where you store facts, concepts, and general knowledge. That Paris is the capital of France, that dogs have 4 legs, that winter comes after autumn. Unlike episodic memories, semantic memories don't come with a sense of when or where you learned them. They're just part of your understanding of how the world works. In another wing of the memory mansion, you'll discover implicit memory, the kind you can't consciously access, but which influences your behavior nonetheless. This includes procedural memory, your body's knowledge of how to do things, how to tie your shoes, ride a bicycle, or play a musical instrument. Once learned, these memories seem to live in your muscles and nerves, available without conscious thought. You don't have to remember how to walk, you just walk. Implicit memory also includes emotional memories, the feelings associated with past experiences that can influence your reactions without you even realizing it. The inexplicable unease you feel in certain situations, the warmth that washes over you when you smell a particular perfume, the way your heart races when you hear a song that reminds you of someone special. These emotional memories often form more quickly and last longer than other types, which explains why feelings can be so much more persistent than facts. What's truly remarkable is how all these different types of memory work together to create your ongoing experience of life. As you move through your day, your brain is constantly weaving together sensory impressions, accessing relevant knowledge, drawing on past experiences, and updating your understanding of the world. It's happening so seamlessly that you're rarely aware of the incredible complexity of the process. But perhaps most fascinating of all is how the strength and persistence of memories depend on factors that might surprise you. It's not just repetition that makes memories stick, though that certainly helps. Emotion plays a huge role. Events that make you feel strongly, whether with joy, fear, surprise, or sadness, are more likely to be remembered vividly. This is why you can probably recall exactly where you were during major world events or personal milestones, but might struggle to remember what you had for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago. Attention is another crucial ingredient. You can't remember what you never really noticed in the first place. This is why you might drive the same route to work every day, yet be unable to describe many of the buildings you pass. Your brain, efficient as always, pays attention to what's important for navigation and lets the rest fade into the background. The timing of when you encounter information also matters. Your brain seems to have certain periods when it's particularly good at forming lasting memories. The hours just after learning something new are crucial for consolidation, which is why a good night's sleep can be so important for remembering what you learned during the day. Even the context in which you form memories influences how well you'll remember them later. The sights, sounds, smells, and feelings present when you learn something become part of the memory itself. This is why returning to a childhood home can trigger such vivid recollections, or why hearing an old song can transport you back to a specific moment in time. As we continue our journey through the science of memory, we'll explore how these remarkable processes can sometimes lead us astray, creating false memories that feel completely real, and how the very act of remembering can change our memories in subtle but important ways. We'll discover why some people seem to have photographic memories while others struggle to remember names, and we'll uncover the surprising ways that forgetting, far from being a failure of memory, is actually one of its most important features. But for now, as we pause in our exploration, take a moment to marvel at the extraordinary gift of memory itself. Every story you can tell, every skill you possess, every person you recognize, every lesson you've learned exists because of this remarkable biological process happening quietly in the background of your consciousness. Your brain, in its quiet wisdom, doesn't just store memories haphazardly like books thrown into a library. Instead, it employs a sophisticated filing system that would make the most organized librarian weep with envy. But here's the beautiful twist. This system is alive, constantly reorganizing itself, creating new connections, and sometimes, quite charmingly, filing things in the most unexpected places. Let's take a gentle stroll through the architecture of memory storage, beginning with something that might surprise you. When neuroscientists first began studying memory, they expected to find a specific location in the brain where each memory lived, like a particular address on a street. Instead, they discovered something far more elegant and complex. Memories are distributed across multiple brain regions, woven into networks that span vast neural territories. Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to remember your 10th birthday party. That single memory doesn't live in one place. The visual details of the cake are stored in your visual cortex. The sound of friends singing is tucked away in your auditory regions. The feeling of excitement lives in your emotional centers, and the sequence of events is organized by your hippocampus. When you recall that birthday, all these different brain regions light up in a coordinated dance, reconstructing the experience from scattered pieces. This distributed storage system is actually quite clever. If memories were stored in single locations, damage to that area would erase them completely. But because they're spread out, your brain has built-in redundancy. It's like having backup copies of important documents stored in different safe deposit boxes across the city. Even if one location is compromised, the others can help maintain the memory. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped structure we met earlier, deserves special attention in our tour. While it doesn't store long-term memories itself, it acts as something like a master index, keeping track of where all the pieces of a memory are stored and helping to link them together when needed. Think of it as the head librarian who knows exactly which shelf holds which book, even though they don't personally house every volume. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The hippocampus doesn't hold onto its indexing role forever. Over time, through a process called systems consolidation, memories gradually become less dependent on the hippocampus and more firmly rooted in the cortical areas where they're distributed. It's as if the memories slowly learn to stand on their own, no longer needing the hippocampus to help coordinate their reconstruction. This process can take months or even years, and it explains some curious aspects of memory loss. When people suffer damage to the hippocampus, they often lose recent memories but retain older ones. The recent memories were still dependent on the hippocampus for coordination, while the older memories had become self-sufficient, embedded in the cortical networks where they could survive without hippocampal assistance. Now, let's explore one of the most intriguing aspects of memory storage, the role of sleep. You might think of sleep as simply downtime for your brain, a period of rest and recovery. But in reality, sleep is when some of the most important memory work happens. It's during sleep that your brain sorts through the day's experiences, deciding what to keep and what to discard, and strengthening the neural connections that form lasting memories. During the deeper stages of sleep, your brain replays the day's experiences in a sped-up format, like watching a movie on fast forward. This replay isn't random. It focuses particularly on experiences that were important or emotionally significant. As these neural patterns fire again and again during sleep, the connections between neurons strengthen, making the memories more stable and enduring. There's something rather poetic about this process. While you're peacefully unconscious, your brain is quietly curating the story of your life, deciding which moments deserve permanent places in your personal narrative and which can be allowed to fade. It's as if you have a night editor, working tirelessly to refine the rough draft of your daily experiences into the polished chapters of your autobiography. Sleep also helps with a process called memory integration, where new information is woven into your existing knowledge network. That difficult concept you struggled with during the day might suddenly make sense the next morning, not because you've learned new information, but because your sleeping brain has found new ways to connect it to what you already know. It's why the phrase "sleep on it" contains genuine wisdom about how the mind works. But sleep isn't the only time your brain works on memory consolidation. Throughout your waking hours, during quiet moments when you're not actively focused on new information, your brain continues to strengthen and reorganize memories. This is part of what neuroscientists call the default mode network, a collection of brain regions that becomes active when your mind is at rest. You've probably experienced this phenomenon without realizing it. Perhaps you've been in the shower or taking a walk, when suddenly a memory from years ago popped into your head for no apparent reason. What's likely happening is that your default mode network is active, making new connections between memories and sometimes bringing older ones back into consciousness as part of this ongoing reorganization process. The strength of a memory, it turns out, isn't fixed when it's first formed. Instead, memories can be strengthened or weakened over time depending on how often they're accessed and in what context. This is where the concept of memory consolidation becomes particularly interesting. Each time you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily unstable, entering a state that neuroscientists call reconsolidation. During this brief window, the memory can be modified, updated, or strengthened before being stored again. This might sound concerning at first. After all, if memories can be changed each time we recall them, how can we trust our recollections? But this flexibility is actually one of memory's greatest features. It allows us to update our understanding of past events based on new information, to heal from traumatic experiences by gradually changing how we remember them, and to strengthen important memories by revisiting them regularly. Consider how this might work in practice. Let's say you have a memory of being embarrassed in school. The first time it happened, the memory might be vivid and painful. But as you grow older and gain perspective, each time you recall that incident, you might add new understanding, perhaps humor or compassion for your younger self. Over time, the emotional sting of the memory might fade, while the lesson it taught you becomes stronger. The basic facts haven't changed, but your relationship with the memory has evolved. This reconstructive nature of memory explains why eyewitness testimony can be unreliable, why family members often remember shared events differently, and why our memories of childhood might not match old photographs or home videos. It's not that anyone is lying, or that memory is fundamentally flawed. Instead, memory is doing what it's designed to do, creating meaning from experience rather than preserving perfect records. The brain also employs sophisticated strategies for organizing and categorizing memories to make them easier to retrieve. Similar memories are often linked together in networks, so that recalling one can trigger others. This is why remembering one classmate from high school might suddenly bring back memories of several others, or why thinking about one family vacation might remind you of details from other trips. These memory networks are constantly being updated and reorganized based on new experiences. If you learn that someone you remember fondly from childhood has accomplished something remarkable, that new information becomes part of your existing memories of that person, potentially changing how you remember past interactions with them. Your brain doesn't just add the new information as a separate file, it integrates it into the existing memory network, creating a richer, more complex understanding. Emotional memories deserve special attention in our exploration because they're processed and stored somewhat differently from other types of memories. The amygdala, two almond-shaped structures in your brain, play crucial roles in emotional memory formation. When you experience something emotionally significant, the amygdala helps ensure that the memory is marked as important and given priority in the consolidation process. This is why emotional events often form such vivid, lasting memories. The brain essentially says, "This mattered. This was important. Make sure we remember this clearly." It's an evolutionary adaptation that helped our ancestors remember dangerous situations to avoid them in the future, but it also helps us remember joyful moments that we might want to recreate. However, the intensity of emotional memories can sometimes work against us. Traumatic experiences can become so deeply embedded that they intrude into consciousness at unwanted moments, or they can become so overwhelming that the brain essentially shuts down the normal memory formation process, leading to fragmented or missing memories of the event. The timing of when memories are formed also influences how they're stored. Memories formed during periods of stress are processed differently than those formed during calm moments. Stress hormones like cortisol can actually enhance memory formation for the central details of an experience while impairing memory for peripheral information. This is why people often have crystal clear memories of the most important aspects of stressful events, but fuzzy recollections of surrounding details. Age plays a fascinating role in memory storage as well. The brains of children and adolescents are still developing, with neural connections forming and pruning at rapid rates. This developmental process affects how memories are encoded and stored. Very young children often don't form lasting autobiographical memories, not because they can't learn, but because the brain structures necessary for this type of memory storage are still maturing. This explains why most people can't remember much from their first few years of life, a phenomenon called childhood amnesia. It's not that these early experiences don't matter. They certainly influence development and may be stored as implicit memories that affect behavior without conscious recall. But the explicit, narrative memories that we can consciously access typically don't begin forming until around age 3 or 4. Interestingly, the way children encode memories is different from adults. Young children tend to focus on different aspects of experiences, often paying more attention to sensory details and emotions than to the logical sequences that adults find important. This can lead to memories that feel fragmented or dreamlike when recalled years later. As we age, memory storage continues to evolve. Older adults often report that remote memories from decades ago seem clearer than recent ones. This isn't just nostalgia. There are real neurological reasons for this pattern. Well-consolidated memories from long ago may indeed be more stable and accessible than newer memories that are still in the process of consolidation. The social context in which memories are formed and stored also plays a crucial role. Humans are fundamentally social beings, and many of our memories are shared experiences. The way we talk about events with others can influence how we remember them. Family stories, repeated over years, can shape and strengthen certain memories, while allowing others to fade. This social aspect of memory is part of why cultural and generational memories persist. Stories passed down through families and communities become part of our own memory networks, even if we didn't directly experience the events described. These shared narratives help create collective identity and understanding, linking individual memories to larger cultural stories. The physical changes that occur in the brain during memory storage are remarkable. When you form a new memory, the connections between neurons actually strengthen. Repeated activation of the same neural pathways makes them more efficient, like well-traveled roads that become smoother and wider with use. At the molecular level, proteins are synthesized to strengthen synaptic connections, and in some cases, entirely new neural connections are formed. This physical basis of memory means that each memory literally changes the structure of your brain. You are not the same person after forming a memory that you were before. The experience has left its mark in the very architecture of your neural networks. In this sense, memory isn't just about preserving the past. It's about continuously reshaping who you are in the present. The physical transformation that occurs when memories take root in your brain reveals one of nature's most elegant solutions to the problem of permanence. Every time you learn your friend's new phone number, master a recipe, or simply notice the way afternoon light falls across your kitchen table, Your brain responds by literally rewiring itself. It's as if each experience is a gentle sculptor, carefully reshaping the neural landscape to accommodate new information. These changes happen at multiple scales simultaneously. At the smallest level, individual synapses, the tiny gaps between neurons, become more efficient at transmitting signals. The receiving neuron might grow more receptors, like adding more doors to a building to handle increased traffic. The sending neuron might release more chemical messengers, ensuring its signals are heard loud and clear. Sometimes, entirely new connections sprout between neurons that had never communicated before, creating novel pathways for information to flow. But perhaps most remarkably, your brain doesn't just strengthen connections randomly. It employs a principle that neuroscientists call synaptic plasticity, captured in the phrase "neurons that fire together, wire together." When you experience something new, multiple brain regions activate simultaneously, and the connections between these coactive regions become strengthened. It's as if your brain is saying, "These pieces of information belong together, so let's make sure they stay connected." This process explains why context is so powerful for memory retrieval. The smell of cinnamon might instantly transport you to your grandmother's kitchen because the neurons processing that scent became wired to the neurons storing memories of her cooking. The opening notes of a particular song might flood you with memories of a summer romance because those auditory patterns became linked to the neural networks holding that emotional experience. Your brain also employs a fascinating quality control system for deciding which memories deserve the energy required for long-term storage. Not every moment of every day gets the full memory treatment. Instead, your brain continuously evaluates incoming information, asking questions like, "Is this new? Is this important? Does this fit with what I already know? Is this emotionally significant?" Only experiences that meet certain criteria get promoted to the ranks of lasting memories. This filtering process is essential because your brain, for all its remarkable capacity, has finite resources. If you remembered every mundane detail with perfect clarity, you'd quickly become overwhelmed by trivial information. Instead, your memory system acts like a wise editor, keeping the meaningful moments and letting the routine fade away. It's why you remember your first day at a new job with crystal clarity, but might struggle to recall what you had for lunch on any random Tuesday from 6 months ago. The consolidation process itself unfolds in waves, like layers of sediment gradually forming rock over geological time. The initial encoding creates what we might call a rough draft of the memory, capturing the basic elements of the experience. Over the following hours and days, this rough draft gets refined through repeated neural replay, particularly during sleep. Details that seemed important at first might fade away, while other aspects become more prominent. But consolidation doesn't stop after a few days or even weeks. Some memories continue to evolve for years, becoming more integrated with your existing knowledge and more resistant to forgetting. This extended consolidation process is why memories from childhood often feel different from recent memories. They've had decades to become woven into the fabric of your identity, taking on an almost mythic quality that recent experiences haven't yet achieved. The concept of memory schemas adds another layer of sophistication to how your brain organizes stored information. Schemas are like mental templates or frameworks that help you understand and remember new experiences by relating them to familiar patterns. When you walk into a restaurant, for example, you don't have to figure out from scratch how the experience will unfold. Your restaurant schema provides a framework. You'll be seated, given a menu, place an order, receive food, and pay a bill. This framework helps you navigate the experience efficiently and also helps you remember what happened. But schemas can also influence what you remember about an experience. Details that fit your existing schemas are more likely to be encoded and retained, while information that doesn't fit might be forgotten or even unconsciously modified to better match your expectations. This is why two people can attend the same event and remember it quite differently, each filtering the experience through their own unique set of schemas built from their personal history. Your brain storage system also employs a clever redundancy strategy that would make any computer engineer envious. Important memories aren't just stored in one location or format. Instead, they're distributed across multiple networks, with different aspects of the same memory reinforcing each other. The visual details of your wedding day might be most strongly stored in visual processing areas, but echoes of that same information also exist in emotional centers, motor regions that remember the feeling of walking down the aisle, and language areas that store the words of your vows. This distributed redundancy means that even if one pathway to a memory becomes damaged or weakened, others might still provide access to the information. It's why someone who suffers a stroke affecting their language centers might still be able to recognize faces and feel emotional connections to people, even if they can't remember names or biographical details. Different aspects of memory storage have different vulnerabilities, creating a robust system that can maintain function even when parts of it are compromised. The role of attention in memory storage deserves careful consideration because it reveals how much control you actually have over what you remember. While it might seem like memory formation is an automatic process, attention acts like a spotlight, determining which aspects of your experience receive the neural resources necessary for long-term storage. You can't remember what you never really noticed in the first place. This principle has profound implications for how you might deliberately improve your memory. By consciously directing your attention to details you want to remember, you're essentially telling your brain, "This matters. Please file this away carefully." It's why mindfulness practices can enhance memory formation. When you're fully present and attentive to your experiences, you're giving your memory system the best possible raw material to work with. The emotional coloring of memories adds yet another dimension to how they're stored and organized. Your brain doesn't just record what happened, it also records how you felt about what happened. These emotional tags become integral parts of the memory itself, influencing not just how vividly you remember something, but also how easily you can access it later. Positive emotions tend to broaden the scope of what gets remembered, while negative emotions often narrow focus to the most immediately relevant details. This emotional component of memory storage explains why certain memories can be triggered so powerfully by mood states. When you're feeling happy, you're more likely to recall other happy memories. When you're sad or anxious, those emotional states can make negative memories more accessible. It's as if your current emotional state provides a key that unlocks memories with similar emotional signatures. The social dimension of memory storage reveals how our individual memory systems are embedded within larger networks of shared remembering. When you discuss experiences with others, you're not just sharing information, you're actually participating in a collaborative memory process. The stories that family members tell and retell become part of your own memory landscape, even for events you might not otherwise remember clearly. This social rehearsal of memories serves multiple functions. It helps strengthen and preserve important shared experiences, creates bonds between people who have common memories, and allows for the correction of individual memory errors through group consensus. But it can also lead to the creation of false memories when group narratives become accepted as individual recollections. Children's memory storage is particularly influenced by social interaction. Young minds are remarkably susceptible to suggestion, not because they're gullible, but because their memory systems are still learning how to distinguish between different sources of information. A story told by a parent about the child's early years might become incorporated into the child's own autobiographical memory, creating seamless narratives that blend actual experience with family lore. The cultural context in which memories are formed also shapes how they're stored and organized. Different cultures emphasize different aspects of experience, and these cultural values influence what gets remembered and how. Some cultures prioritize individual achievement and personal narrative, leading to detailed autobiographical memories focused on personal accomplishments and unique experiences. Others emphasize collective identity and social harmony, resulting in memories that are more focused on relationships and group experiences. Language itself plays a fascinating role in memory storage. The words and concepts available in your native language can influence not just how you describe memories, but how you form and organize them in the first place. Some languages have rich vocabularies for describing emotional states, while others excel at capturing spatial relationships or temporal nuances. These linguistic resources become tools that your memory system uses to encode and categorize experiences. The phenomenon of state-dependent memory reveals another intriguing aspect of how storage and retrieval interact. Memories formed in a particular physical or emotional state are often more easily accessed when you're in a similar state later. Study something while drinking coffee, and you might remember it better when you have coffee again. Learn information while feeling calm and relaxed, and a similar state of relaxation might help you retrieve it more effectively. This state dependency extends beyond simple physical conditions to include complex contextual factors. The room where you first heard a piece of music, the season when you learned a new skill, even the people who were present during important experiences, can all become retrieval cues that help unlock stored memories. Your brain doesn't just store the content of experiences, it stores the entire context, creating rich, multi-dimensional records that can be accessed through multiple pathways. The storage of procedural memories, those skills and habits that become second nature, follows somewhat different rules than the storage of explicit memories. When you first learn to drive a car, every action requires conscious attention and explicit memory. You have to deliberately remember to check your mirrors, signal turns, and monitor your speed. But as the skill becomes automatic, the memory traces migrate from conscious, declarative systems to more implicit, procedural networks. This migration from explicit to implicit storage is why well-learned skills can feel effortless and why they're often resistant to forgetting, even after long periods without practice. The saying "you never forget how to ride a bicycle" captures this truth about procedural memory storage. These deeply embedded motor patterns become part of your body's knowledge, stored in neural networks that can be activated without conscious effort. The timing of memory consolidation reveals the elegant choreography of neural housekeeping that occurs during rest periods. While you're awake and actively processing new information, your brain is primarily focused on encoding and short-term maintenance of memories. But during sleep and quiet rest, the focus shifts to consolidation and integration. It's during these offline periods that the real work of memory storage occurs. Different stages of sleep contribute to different aspects of memory consolidation. The deep, slow-wave sleep that occurs early in the night seems particularly important for consolidating declarative memories, while REM sleep later in the night may be more crucial for integrating emotional memories and creative insights. The dreaming that occurs during REM sleep might actually be a byproduct of this memory consolidation process, as your brain weaves together fragments of recent experience with older memories. This sleep-dependent consolidation process explains why pulling an all-nighter before an exam is often counterproductive. Without adequate sleep, the information you've studied may never make the transition from temporary storage to lasting memory. The hours you spend sleeping aren't time away from learning. They're when much of the real learning actually happens. The flexibility of memory storage becomes particularly evident when we consider how memories can be strengthened, weakened, or modified long after their initial formation. Each time you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily labile, entering a state where it can be updated with new information or changed by your current perspective. This reconsolidation process allows memories to remain relevant and useful even as circumstances change. But this flexibility comes with a cost. Because memories can be modified each time they're accessed, frequently recalled memories may gradually drift away from their original form. The stories you tell most often about your past may be the least accurate in terms of factual detail, even though they feel the most vivid and certain. They've been polished and refined through repeated telling until they become more like well-crafted narratives than precise historical records. This reconstructive nature of memory storage helps explain why eyewitness testimony can be unreliable, why siblings often remember childhood events differently, and why your memories of important personal experiences might not match photographic or video evidence. It's not that memory is broken or untrustworthy, it's that memory is designed to extract meaning and significance from experience, rather than to serve as a perfect recording device. The storage of traumatic memories presents unique challenges and reveals the adaptive flexibility of the memory system. When experiences are too overwhelming, the normal consolidation process can be disrupted, leading to fragmented memories that may intrude into consciousness at unexpected times. Alternatively, some traumatic experiences may be so thoroughly suppressed that they become inaccessible to conscious recall, though they may continue to influence behavior and emotional responses. The brain's response to trauma illustrates the delicate balance between remembering and forgetting that characterizes healthy memory function. Some aspects of difficult experiences need to be retained so that similar dangers can be recognized and avoided in the future. But other aspects, particularly the overwhelming emotional intensity, may need to be dampened so that the individual can continue to function effectively. As we've seen, the storage of memory is far from a simple filing process. It's a dynamic, creative, and deeply personal process that shapes not just what you remember, but who you become. Each memory stored changes the architecture of your brain and influences how future experiences will be processed and remembered. In this sense, you are quite literally the sum of your memories, constantly being rewritten by the ongoing process of experience and storage. Your memory system, in all its remarkable complexity, serves not just to preserve the past, but to construct a coherent sense of self that persists through time. It allows you to learn from experience, maintain relationships, develop skills, and create the continuous narrative that is your life story. And tonight, as you settle into rest, this extraordinary system will quietly continue its work, weaving today's experiences into the vast tapestry of who you are. The remarkable thing about memory storage is that it doesn't happen in isolation. Your brain is constantly making decisions about what deserves permanent residence in the mansion of your mind and what can be allowed to fade away like yesterday's newspaper. This process of selective retention is so sophisticated that it would put the most discerning art curator to shame, and it's happening every moment of every day without you even realizing it. Let's wander through the curious ways your brain decides what to keep and what to let go. Imagine you're at a dinner party. Throughout the evening, you're bombarded with information. The taste of the wine, snippets of conversation, the pattern on the wallpaper, someone's laugh, the temperature of the room, the way the candlelight flickers across faces. Your brain can't possibly store every detail with equal intensity, so it employs a triage system, rapidly sorting experiences based on their perceived importance. Novelty gets priority treatment. If someone at the party tells an unexpected story, or if you meet someone whose profession you've never encountered before, those details are more likely to make it into long-term storage. Your brain essentially says, this is new information that might be useful later. It's why you're more likely to remember the person who works as a professional ice sculptor than the third accountant you met that evening. Emotional significance acts as another powerful curator. The moment someone shares deeply personal news, good or bad, your emotional centers light up and essentially stamp that memory with a priority handling label. Years later, you might not remember what you ate at that dinner party, but you'll vividly recall the joy in someone's voice when they announced their engagement, or the concern you felt when someone shared difficult news. Repetition and rehearsal also influence what gets filed away permanently. If the same topic comes up multiple times during the evening, or if you find yourself thinking about a particular conversation on the drive home, you're essentially telling your brain that this information deserves reinforcement. Each time you revisit the memory, even briefly, you're strengthening the neural pathways that encode it. But here's where memory storage reveals one of its most charming quirks. Sometimes the details that stick aren't the ones you'd expect. You might forget the main topic of conversation, but remember perfectly the way someone gestured while speaking, or the exact shade of lipstick someone was wearing, or how a particular phrase was pronounced. These seemingly random details often become anchored to stronger memories, creating delightful associations that can transport you back to that moment years later. The brain's storage system also employs a fascinating process called memory consolidation, which unfolds over multiple timescales. There's immediate consolidation, happening in the minutes and hours after an experience, where the basic structure of the memory is established. Then there's systems consolidation, a much slower process that can take months or years, during which memories gradually become less dependent on the hippocampus and more firmly embedded in cortical networks. This extended timeline means that memories continue to evolve long after they're first formed. A dinner party conversation that seemed insignificant at the time might gain importance months later when you discover that someone's offhand comment contained valuable insight. Your brain, in its wisdom, might retroactively strengthen that memory, promoting it from casual storage to permanent residence. Sleep plays such a crucial role in this consolidation process that it deserves its own moment of appreciation. During those peaceful hours when you're unconscious, your brain becomes incredibly busy, sorting through the day's experiences like a librarian working the night shift. It replays important events, strengthens significant memories, and begins the process of integrating new information with existing knowledge. The different stages of sleep contribute to different aspects of memory consolidation. During deep sleep, your brain focuses on declarative memories, those facts and experiences you can consciously recall. The slow brainwaves, characteristic of this sleep stage, seem to coordinate the transfer of information from temporary storage areas to more permanent locations. It's as if your brain is carefully moving precious items from a temporary warehouse to a permanent museum. REM sleep, with its vivid dreams and rapid eye movements, appears to be particularly important for emotional memories and creative connections. During this stage, your brain might link today's dinner party conversation with a similar discussion you had years ago, or find unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated experiences. The bizarre logic of dreams might actually reflect your brain's attempt to find creative patterns and associations among stored memories. This is why the old advice to sleep on important decisions contains genuine neurological wisdom. The problem you couldn't solve yesterday might have a clear solution this morning, not because new information appeared overnight, but because your sleeping brain found new ways to connect existing memories and knowledge. The social nature of human memory adds another layer of complexity to how information gets stored. We're not just individual memory systems operating in isolation. We're part of a vast network of interconnected minds, each influencing the others. When you discuss experiences with others, you're not just sharing information, you're participating in a collaborative memory process that can strengthen, modify, or even create memories. Think about how family stories evolve over time. An incident that happened when you were young might be retold at family gatherings, with different family members contributing different details. Over the years, these collaborative retellings can actually change your own memory of the event, incorporating details that others remembered but you had forgotten, or sometimes even details that weren't part of your original experience at all. This social dimension of memory storage helps explain why shared experiences often feel more vivid and meaningful than solitary ones. When multiple people remember the same event, the collective retelling creates a richer, more detailed memory network. Each person's individual memories contribute to a shared narrative that becomes more robust and enduring than any single person's recollection might have been. The cultural context in which memories are formed also shapes how they're stored and what aspects are emphasized. Different cultures prioritize different types of information, and these cultural values influence what gets remembered most clearly. Some cultures emphasize individual achievement and personal narrative, leading to detailed autobiographical memories. Others focus more on relationships and community, resulting in memories that are more socially oriented. Language itself becomes a tool for memory storage, providing categories and concepts that help organize experiences. The words available in your native language can actually influence what you notice and remember. If your language has multiple words for different types of rain, you might form more detailed memories of weather conditions. If it has rich vocabulary for emotional states, you might encode the feeling aspects of experiences more precisely. Age brings its own interesting changes to memory storage patterns. Children's brains, still developing and incredibly plastic, form memories differently than adult brains. Young minds are like sponges, absorbing vast amounts of information with remarkable efficiency. However, the memories they form are often organized differently, focusing more on sensory details and emotional impressions than on logical sequences or factual accuracy. As we age, our memory storage systems become more selective and efficient. Older adults often show a phenomenon called the positivity effect, where they're more likely to remember positive experiences and forget negative ones. This isn't just wishful thinking. It reflects actual changes in how the aging brain processes and stores emotional information. It's as if experience teaches the memory system to focus on what's most important for well-being and life satisfaction. The physical basis of memory storage involves actual structural changes in brain tissue. Every time you form a lasting memory, proteins are synthesized, synapses are strengthened, and sometimes entirely new neural connections are created. In a very real sense, each memory you form changes who you are at the cellular level. The brain you wake up with tomorrow will be slightly different from the one you have today, modified by today's experiences and the memories they create. This biological reality of memory formation means that learning and remembering aren't just mental processes, they're physical transformations. When you master a new skill, understand a complex concept, or form a meaningful relationship, you're literally rewiring your brain. The old saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is neurologically false. As long as your brain is healthy, it retains the capacity to form new memories and create new neural pathways throughout your entire life. The storage of different types of memories follows somewhat different rules, creating a complex filing system that would challenge even the most sophisticated computer database. Procedural memories, those skills and habits that become automatic, are stored primarily in brain regions like the basal ganglia and cerebellum. These areas specialize in motor learning and can maintain skills even when other memory systems are compromised. Episodic memories, your personal experiences and life stories rely heavily on the hippocampus and associated structures. These memories are rich in contextual detail and are often accompanied by a sense of mental time travel, allowing you to re-experience past events in vivid detail. They're the memories that make you feel like you're actually revisiting moments from your past rather than simply recalling facts about them. Semantic memories, your knowledge about the world, gradually become independent of the hippocampus and are stored in various cortical regions. These memories lose their episodic character over time. You know that Paris is the capital of France, but you probably don't remember when or where you first learned this fact. The information has been abstracted from its original learning context and integrated into your general knowledge base. Working memory, that mental workspace where you hold and manipulate information in the present moment, operates on entirely different principles. It's not really about storage at all, but rather about the temporary activation of information that's either coming in from your senses or being retrieved from long-term storage. It's like having a mental desktop where you can spread out the materials you're currently working with. The interaction between these different memory systems creates the seamless experience of remembering. When you recall a childhood birthday party, your episodic memory provides the narrative framework and contextual details. Your semantic memory contributes factual knowledge about birthdays and parties in general. Your procedural memory might activate memories of how to blow out candles, and your working memory coordinates all this information into a coherent recollection. Attention plays a crucial role in determining what gets stored in the first place. You can only remember what you actually noticed, and attention acts as the gateway that determines which aspects of your ongoing experience receive the neural resources necessary for memory formation. This is why mindfulness practices can be so effective for improving memory. By training yourself to be more present and attentive, you're giving your memory system better raw material to work with. The emotional coloring of memories adds another dimension to storage that often determines not just what you remember, but how easily you can access those memories later. Positive emotions tend to broaden the scope of attention and memory formation, while negative emotions often narrow focus to the most immediately relevant details. This is why happy memories often feel rich and expansive, while traumatic memories might be intensely vivid for certain details, but fuzzy for others. Your current emotional state can also influence which stored memories are most accessible. When you're feeling happy, positive memories become easier to retrieve. When you're sad or anxious, those emotional states can act like keys that unlock memories with similar emotional signatures. This mood-dependent memory effect helps explain why depression can seem to create a vicious cycle, where negative feelings make negative memories more accessible, which in turn reinforces the negative mood. The phenomenon of memory interference reveals how stored memories can influence each other in surprising ways. When you learn new information that's similar to something you already know, the two sets of memories can interfere with each other. This can make it harder to remember either one accurately, as your brain sometimes confuses details from one memory with details from another. But interference isn't always a problem. Sometimes it can actually strengthen memories by forcing your brain to distinguish more clearly between similar experiences. When you encounter information that conflicts with what you already believe you know, it can trigger a process of memory updating that leads to more accurate and nuanced understanding. The concept of memory schemas provides insight into how your brain organizes stored information to make it more useful. Schemas are like mental templates or frameworks that help you understand new experiences by relating them to familiar patterns. When you enter a restaurant, you don't have to figure out from scratch how the experience will unfold, because your restaurant schema provides a framework that guides both your behavior and your memory formation. But schemas can also bias what you remember, emphasizing information that fits your existing frameworks while downplaying or distorting information that doesn't fit. This is why two people can witness the same event and remember it quite differently, each filtering the experience through their own unique set of schemas built from personal history and cultural background. The storage of false memories reveals both the flexibility and the vulnerability of the memory system. Under certain circumstances, you can form vivid, detailed memories of events that never actually happened. These false memories aren't signs of mental illness or dishonesty. They're natural consequences of how the reconstructive memory system works. Every time you remember something, you're not just retrieving a stored file. You're actively reconstructing the experience based on available information. If that information includes suggestions from others, expectations based on schemas, or details from similar experiences, those elements can become incorporated into the reconstructed memory. Over time, these reconstructed memories can feel just as real and vivid as memories of actual experiences. This reconstructive nature of memory has profound implications for how we understand the reliability of eyewitness testimony, the accuracy of childhood memories, and even our own personal narratives. It doesn't mean that memory is worthless or that we can't trust our recollections. Instead, it suggests that memory serves a different function than we might expect. Rather than providing perfect records of the past, memory helps us construct meaningful narratives that guide future behavior and maintain our sense of identity. The storage of traumatic memories follows somewhat different rules, because extreme stress can disrupt normal memory consolidation processes. Sometimes traumatic experiences are remembered with unusual vividness and detail, creating intrusive memories that can be triggered by seemingly unrelated cues. Other times, trauma can lead to fragmented or missing memories, as if the normal recording process was overwhelmed and shut down. These variations in trauma memory storage reflect the brain's attempt to balance competing needs: the need to remember dangerous situations so they can be avoided in the future, and the need to function effectively despite having experienced overwhelming events. The memory system's response to trauma illustrates its adaptive flexibility, even when that flexibility sometimes creates problems for the individual. Recovery from traumatic experiences often involves gradually changing how these memories are stored and accessed. Through therapy, social support, or simply the passage of time, traumatic memories can be integrated into broader life narratives in ways that reduce their emotional impact while preserving whatever lessons they might contain. The storage of memories across the human lifespan reveals fascinating patterns that reflect both the developing brain's changing capacities and the accumulated wisdom of experience. Very young children form memories differently than adults, often focusing more on emotional and sensory aspects than on logical sequences. As children develop language skills, their ability to form and retain narrative memories improves dramatically. Adolescence brings its own unique memory characteristics, as the teenage brain undergoes significant reorganization. The emotional intensity of adolescent experiences, combined with ongoing neural development, can create particularly vivid and lasting memories from this period. Many adults report that their most emotionally significant memories come from their teenage years and early 20s, a phenomenon psychologists call the reminiscence bump. In older adulthood, memory storage patterns shift again. While the formation of new episodic memories may become less efficient, older adults often show preserved or even enhanced ability to access remote memories from earlier in life. They may also become more selective in what they choose to remember, focusing on positive experiences and meaningful relationships, while letting go of trivial details and minor frustrations. The social and cultural transmission of memories across generations reveals how individual memory storage is embedded within larger collective memory systems. The stories that families, communities, and cultures tell and retell become part of individual memory networks, creating shared narratives that persist across generations. These collective memories help maintain cultural identity and social cohesion, but they can also evolve over time as each generation adds its own interpretations and emphases. The relationship between memory storage and creativity reveals another fascinating aspect of how stored information can be recombined in novel ways. Creative insights often emerge from unexpected connections between previously stored memories, as the brain finds new ways to link disparate pieces of information. The aha moment of creative discovery might actually represent the formation of new connections between existing memory networks. This creative aspect of memory storage suggests that the value of stored memories extends beyond their original contexts. Information that seemed irrelevant when it was first encoded might later become the key component of a creative solution or innovative idea. In this sense, your brain's tendency to store seemingly random details might actually be preparing you for future creative opportunities you can't yet imagine. The phenomenon of memory consolidation during offline periods reveals the importance of rest and reflection for optimal memory storage. The quiet moments between active learning, the peaceful intervals during walks or meditation, the transitional periods between waking and sleeping, all provide opportunities for your brain to strengthen and integrate newly formed memories. This is why taking breaks during intensive learning can actually improve retention, why insights often come during relaxed states, and why the advice to sleep on it contains genuine wisdom about how memory works. The brain's offline processing capabilities mean that learning continues even when you're not consciously trying to learn, as your memory systems work to organize and consolidate the day's experiences. The storage of implicit memories, those unconscious influences that shape behavior without conscious awareness, operates according to different principles than explicit memory storage. These memories can form rapidly and persist for long periods, influencing your reactions and preferences without you realizing why. The slight uneasiness you feel in certain situations, the inexplicable attraction to particular music or scents, the automatic way you respond to familiar social situations, all reflect the influence of stored implicit memories. Understanding these implicit influences can provide insight into your own behavioral patterns and emotional responses. Why do certain places make you feel peaceful while others create anxiety? Why are you drawn to particular types of people or activities? The answers often lie in implicit memories that were formed long ago and continue to shape your responses today. The storage of memories in dreams and altered states of consciousness reveals additional dimensions of how the brain processes and integrates information. During dreams, your brain appears to be actively working with stored memories, creating novel combinations and exploring emotional themes that might not be processed during waking consciousness. While dream content can seem bizarre and illogical, the underlying memory processing might serve important functions for creativity, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Some altered states of consciousness, whether achieved through meditation, artistic absorption, or other means, seem to provide special access to stored memories that are normally below the threshold of conscious awareness. These states can sometimes reveal connections and insights that weren't apparent during ordinary consciousness, suggesting that memory storage includes layers of information that are accessible under special circumstances. The interaction between memory storage and identity formation reveals how the memories you choose to rehearse and emphasize gradually shape who you become. The stories you tell about yourself, the experiences you focus on, and the lessons you draw from past events all contribute to your ongoing sense of self. In this way, memory storage isn't just about preserving the past. It's about actively constructing the narrative that defines your identity. This constructive aspect of memory storage means that you have some agency in determining how your past influences your present and future. By consciously attending to certain memories and interpretations while allowing others to fade, you can gradually reshape your personal narrative in ways that support your goals and values. The mystery of memory storage ultimately reveals the profound intimacy between mind and brain, between subjective experience and biological process. Each memory you form creates actual physical changes in neural tissue, while each physical change in the brain influences your subjective experience of remembering. You are, quite literally, the ongoing story that your memory system tells about you, constantly being rewritten through the accumulation of new experiences and the creative reconstruction of old ones. Tonight, as you settle into rest, this remarkable process will continue its quiet work, weaving today's experiences into the vast tapestry of stored memories that make you uniquely yourself. The conversation you had, the sunset you noticed, the way this moment feels right now, all are becoming part of the permanent collection in the museum of your mind, ready to influence and enrich all the moments yet to come. Memory retrieval is perhaps the most magical act your brain performs. Though it happens so seamlessly, you rarely notice the extraordinary choreography involved. Right now, as you listen to these words, your mind is effortlessly accessing decades of stored knowledge about language, meaning, and experience, weaving them together into understanding without you having to consciously direct the process. It's like having a personal librarian with perfect knowledge of every book in an infinite collection, instantly delivering exactly what you need before you even finish asking for it. But this metaphor of a librarian retrieving books from shelves, while charming, doesn't quite capture the true nature of what happens when you remember. Memory retrieval isn't like pulling a file from a cabinet or playing back a recording. Instead, it's more like a theatrical performance, where different parts of your brain take the stage to recreate an experience from scattered clues and fragments. Each time you remember something, You're not accessing a single stored item, but rather conducting a complex symphony of neural activity that reconstructs the memory anew. Let's follow this process as it unfolds. Imagine someone mentions the name of your childhood best friend. That simple cue, those few syllables, sets off a cascade of neural activity that would make the most sophisticated computer network seem sluggish by comparison. The sound of the name activates auditory processing regions, which then send signals racing through association networks, triggering a pattern of activity that might span dozens of brain regions simultaneously. Within milliseconds, fragments begin to coalesce. The visual cortex starts painting pictures. Your friend's face, the color of their hair, the way they smiled. Motor regions contribute the memory of playing together, the feeling of throwing a ball back and forth, or the sensation of riding bicycles side by side. Emotional centers add their contribution. The warmth of friendship, perhaps the sting of a long-ago argument, or the bittersweet feeling of growing apart. Language areas provide words and conversations, while spatial regions map out the geography of shared adventures. All of these fragments, stored in different locations and encoded at different times, somehow come together to create a unified experience of remembering. It's as if your brain is solving a vast jigsaw puzzle in real time, finding pieces scattered across neural territories and assembling them into a coherent picture. The remarkable thing is that this process feels effortless and instantaneous, though it involves coordination between brain regions that would challenge the most sophisticated air traffic control system. But here's where memory retrieval reveals one of its most intriguing secrets. The memory you experience isn't identical to any previous version of that memory. Each time you remember something, you're creating a new version based on the fragments currently available, influenced by your present mood, recent experiences, and what's happened to you in all the years since the memory was first formed. It's like a jazz musician playing a familiar tune, where the basic melody remains recognizable but the performance is always unique. This reconstructive nature of retrieval explains why memory can feel so vivid and certain, while still being surprisingly malleable. You might remember your childhood friend's house as being yellow with blue shutters, and that memory might feel absolutely rock solid. But if you were to see a photograph from that time, you might discover it was actually white with green shutters. Your brain, in its creative wisdom, has been faithfully reconstructing a version of the memory that incorporates not just the original visual information, but also emotional associations, other yellow houses you've seen, and perhaps the golden feeling of those childhood afternoons. The cues that trigger memory retrieval can be wonderfully unexpected and surprisingly powerful. A whiff of a particular perfume might instantly transport you to your grandmother's kitchen. The opening notes of a song might flood you with memories of a summer romance. The feeling of sand between your toes might bring back an entire beach vacation in vivid detail. These sensory cues work so effectively because they were encoded as integral parts of the original memory, creating multiple pathways back to the same experience. This phenomenon, which psychologists call cue-dependent retrieval, reveals just how richly interconnected your memory networks really are. Every experience you have is encoded not just as isolated facts or images, but as part of a complex web of associations. The scent of jasmine becomes linked to the sight of your grandmother's garden, the sound of her voice, the taste of her cookies, the feeling of being loved and safe. Years later, any one of these elements can serve as a key that unlocks the entire network of associated memories. Context plays a particularly fascinating role in memory retrieval. You've probably experienced walking into your childhood bedroom and suddenly remembering things you hadn't thought about in years. The physical environment acts as a powerful retrieval cue because it was present when the original memories were formed. Your brain encoded not just what happened, but where it happened, and returning to that location reactivates the entire memory network. This context-dependent retrieval extends beyond physical locations to include internal states as well. The mood you were in when you learned something can later serve as a retrieval cue. If you studied for an exam while feeling slightly anxious, you might actually remember the material better when you're in a similar state of mild anxiety during the test. It's as if your brain creates multiple filing systems for the same information, organized not just by content but by the circumstances surrounding the learning. The social dimension of memory retrieval adds another layer of richness to the process. When you share memories with others who are present for the same experiences, you're not just comparing notes, you're actually participating in a collaborative reconstruction process. Each person's individual fragments contribute to a richer, more complete version of the shared memory. Someone might remember details that you had forgotten, while you might recall aspects that were missing from their version. This collaborative aspect of memory retrieval helps explain why family gatherings often turn into storytelling sessions, with different family members contributing different pieces to familiar narratives. Each telling strengthens certain aspects of the shared memories, while potentially modifying others. Over time, these collaborative reconstructions can create family myths that feel absolutely true to everyone involved, even though they may bear only loose resemblance to the original events. The emotional state you're in during retrieval can dramatically influence what you remember and how you remember it. When you're feeling happy, positive memories become more accessible, while negative experiences might fade into the background. Conversely, when you're sad or anxious, those emotional states can act like keys that unlock memories with similar emotional signatures. This mood-congruent retrieval helps explain why depression can feel so encompassing, as negative feelings make negative memories more prominent, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. But your brain doesn't just passively respond to whatever cues happen to be present. You also have remarkable control over memory retrieval through the power of intentional search. When you deliberately try to remember something, you're essentially directing your brain's search processes, providing additional cues and context that can help unlock stored information. The more specific and varied the cues you provide, the more likely you are to successfully retrieve the target memory. This intentional aspect of retrieval is what makes memory techniques so effective. When memory champions perform seemingly impossible feats of recall, they're not relying on superhuman memory capacity. Instead, they're using sophisticated retrieval strategies that provide multiple pathways back to stored information. They might create vivid visual images, construct elaborate stories, or build associations with familiar locations, all designed to provide rich networks of retrieval cues. The timing of retrieval attempts can also influence success. Information that's difficult to remember at one moment might be easily accessible just a few minutes later. This fluctuation in availability reflects the dynamic nature of memory networks, which are constantly changing based on your current mental state, recent experiences, and the ongoing process of memory consolidation. Sometimes, a memory that seems lost forever can suddenly resurface when the right combination of cues aligns. Sleep plays a crucial role not just in memory formation and consolidation, but also in retrieval. You've probably had the experience of struggling to remember something before bed, only to have it pop into your mind clearly the next morning. During sleep, your brain continues to work on memory problems, sometimes finding connections and pathways that weren't apparent during waking consciousness. It's as if your sleeping brain has access to filing systems that are partially locked during waking hours. Dreams themselves might represent a special form of memory retrieval, where your brain freely associates between stored experiences without the constraints of logical thinking. The bizarre combinations and impossible scenarios that characterize dreams might actually reflect your memory system's attempt to find new connections between disparate experiences. While dream content can seem meaningless, the underlying process might serve important functions for creative problem-solving and emotional integration. The phenomenon of tip-of-the-tongue experiences provides a fascinating window into the mechanics of memory retrieval. When you know that you know something but can't quite access it, your brain is essentially stuck in a partial retrieval state. You might remember fragments of the target information. how many syllables a forgotten word contains, what it rhymes with, or the context where you learned it, but the complete memory remains tantalizingly out of reach. These experiences reveal that memory retrieval can be a gradual process, with different aspects of stored information becoming accessible at different rates. Age brings interesting changes to memory retrieval patterns. While older adults might have more difficulty with certain types of retrieval, particularly for recently formed memories, they often show enhanced access to remote memories from earlier in life. It's as if the passage of time creates a kind of archaeological layering, where older memories become more firmly embedded and accessible, while newer ones remain more vulnerable to retrieval difficulties. The retrieval of different types of memories follows somewhat different patterns. Procedural memories, those automatic skills like riding a bicycle or typing on a keyboard, can often be retrieved effortlessly, even after long periods of disuse. These motor memories seem to be stored in brain regions that maintain their accessibility over time. You might not consciously remember learning to tie your shoes, but your fingers still know exactly what to do. Episodic memories, your personal experiences and life stories, require more complex retrieval processes because they're distributed across multiple brain regions and depend on the coordinated reactivation of diverse neural networks. These memories are also more susceptible to reconstruction effects, as each retrieval potentially modifies the stored information based on your current perspective and circumstances. Semantic memories, your factual knowledge about the world, often show the most efficient retrieval because they've become abstracted from their original learning contexts and integrated into well-organized knowledge networks. You can quickly retrieve the fact that Paris is the capital of France without having to remember when or where you first learned this information. The fact has become part of your general knowledge base, accessible through multiple pathways. The retrieval of implicit memories operates largely outside of conscious awareness but can powerfully influence your behavior and emotional responses. The slight uneasiness you feel in certain situations, the automatic way you respond to familiar social cues, or the inexplicable preferences you have for certain foods or music, all reflect the influence of implicit memories that are being retrieved and influencing your current experience without your conscious recognition. Stress can have complex effects on memory retrieval. Moderate levels of stress might actually enhance retrieval by increasing attention and arousal, making stored memories more accessible. But high levels of stress can impair retrieval by disrupting the delicate coordination required for successful memory reconstruction. This is why people sometimes blank out during high-pressure situations like exams or public speaking, even though they knew the information perfectly well in calmer moments. The retrieval of traumatic memories presents special challenges because these experiences are often stored in fragmented ways that don't follow normal retrieval patterns. Sometimes traumatic memories can be triggered involuntarily by seemingly unrelated cues, flooding consciousness with vivid sensory and emotional details. Other times, traumatic experiences might be difficult to retrieve voluntarily, as if normal access pathways have been disrupted or blocked. Recovery from trauma often involves gradually improving access to these difficult memories in safe, controlled ways that allow for processing and integration without becoming overwhelmed. This might involve working with therapists who can provide support and coping strategies, or it might happen naturally over time as the memory system finds ways to incorporate traumatic experiences into broader life narratives. The cultural context in which retrieval occurs can also influence what you remember and how you remember it. Different cultures emphasize different aspects of experience, and these cultural frameworks can serve as retrieval cues that highlight certain memories while allowing others to fade. If your culture values individual achievement, you might more easily retrieve memories of personal accomplishments. If it emphasizes community and relationships, social memories might be more readily accessible. Language itself provides a rich set of retrieval cues, as the words and concepts available in your native language create categories that help organize and access stored experiences. Bilingual individuals sometimes report that memories feel different when retrieved in different languages, as if each language provides access to different aspects of stored experience. A memory formed in one language might feel more vivid and emotionally rich when retrieved using that same language. The retrieval of childhood memories presents particular challenges because these experiences were encoded by a developing brain using different organizational strategies than adult memories. Early memories are often more sensory and emotional than logical or narrative, which can make them feel dreamlike or fragmented when retrieved years later. The process of trying to access childhood memories might involve learning to think in ways that match how your younger self encoded experiences. False memory retrieval reveals both the creative power and the potential vulnerability of the memory system. Under certain circumstances, you can retrieve vivid, detailed memories of events that never actually happened. These false memories aren't signs of mental illness or dishonesty. They're natural consequences of how the reconstructive retrieval process works. When you attempt to retrieve a memory, your brain assembles available information into the most coherent narrative possible, and sometimes this process incorporates suggestions, expectations, or details from other experiences. The phenomenon of recovered memories, where previously inaccessible experiences suddenly become available to conscious recall, illustrates the complex relationship between memory storage and retrieval. Some memories might become temporarily inaccessible due to psychological defenses, changes in context, or simply the natural fluctuations in memory network activity. When the right combination of cues and circumstances aligns, these memories might suddenly resurface with surprising clarity. However, the retrieval of previously inaccessible memories requires careful interpretation, as the same reconstructive processes that can recover genuine experiences can also create false memories that feel equally real and convincing. The brain's remarkable ability to create coherent narratives from fragmentary information means that not every retrieved memory necessarily corresponds to actual past events. The social and therapeutic contexts in which memory retrieval occurs can significantly influence what is remembered and how it's interpreted. Supportive relationships can provide safe spaces for exploring difficult memories, while suggestive questioning or leading techniques might inadvertently influence the retrieval process in ways that create false memories or distort genuine ones. The retrieval of positive memories can serve important functions for emotional well-being and resilience. When you're facing current challenges, your brain's ability to access memories of past successes, moments of joy, or times when you felt loved and supported can provide crucial emotional resources. This positive memory retrieval might happen automatically during difficult times, or it might be something you can deliberately cultivate through practices like gratitude or reminiscence. The creative aspects of memory retrieval reveal how stored experiences can be recombined in novel ways to generate new insights and solutions. When you're trying to solve a problem or come up with a creative idea, your brain searches through stored memories looking for relevant information, often making unexpected connections between experiences that seemed unrelated. The aha moment of creative insight might represent the successful retrieval and recombination of previously separate memory fragments. This creative dimension of retrieval suggests that the value of your stored memories extends far beyond their ability to help you remember specific past events. The vast collection of experiences, knowledge, and skills you've accumulated over your lifetime provides raw material for ongoing creativity, problem-solving, and adaptation. Each memory retrieval is potentially an opportunity for new learning and insight. The retrieval of memories during different states of consciousness can reveal hidden dimensions of stored experience. Meditation, artistic absorption, or other altered states might provide special access to memories that are normally below the threshold of conscious awareness. These states can sometimes facilitate the retrieval of subtle insights, creative connections, or emotional understanding that weren't apparent during ordinary consciousness. The timing of memory retrieval throughout the day follows interesting patterns that reflect the natural rhythms of brain function. Some types of memories might be more easily retrieved during certain times of day, when the brain regions involved in their storage are most active. The quiet moments just before sleep or immediately after waking might provide special opportunities for memory retrieval, as the brain transitions between different states of consciousness. The retrieval of shared cultural memories reveals how individual memory systems are embedded within larger collective memory networks. The stories, traditions, and historical narratives that cultures preserve and transmit across generations become part of individual memory systems, providing shared frameworks for understanding and interpreting personal experiences. When you retrieve these cultural memories, you're participating in a collective remembering process that connects you to broader communities of meaning. The relationship between memory retrieval and identity formation shows how the memories you choose to access and emphasize gradually shape your ongoing sense of self. The stories you tell about yourself, the experiences you focus on, and the lessons you draw from past events all emerge from selective retrieval processes that highlight certain aspects of your stored experience while allowing others to remain in the background. This selective aspect of memory retrieval means that you have some agency in determining how your past influences your present and future. By consciously attending to certain types of memories and developing skills for accessing positive and empowering experiences, you can gradually reshape your relationship with your own history. The past may be fixed, but your memory of the past remains beautifully, mysteriously alive. The phenomenon of involuntary memory retrieval, where experiences suddenly surface without conscious intention, reveals the ongoing activity of memory networks beneath the threshold of awareness. These spontaneous memories often feel particularly vivid and meaningful, perhaps because they emerge from deep associative processes that operate outside of conscious control. The unexpected memory triggered by a scent, a piece of music, or a chance encounter might provide access to aspects of experience that deliberate searching couldn't reach. The retrieval of memories during emotional states can create powerful feedback loops that influence both current feelings and future memory formation. When you're feeling nostalgic, you might more easily access warm memories from the past, which can deepen the nostalgic feeling and make similar memories even more accessible. Understanding these mood-dependent retrieval patterns can provide insight into emotional cycles and suggest strategies for managing difficult emotional states. The social contagion of memory retrieval reveals how being around others who are remembering can trigger your own memory processes. When someone begins sharing a story from their past, it often prompts others to retrieve and share related memories from their own experiences. This social facilitation of memory retrieval helps explain why storytelling is such a universal human activity and why shared reminiscence can create powerful bonds between people. The retrieval of procedural memories, those automatic skills and habits, often occurs without conscious awareness, but can sometimes be brought into consciousness through deliberate attention. A professional musician might not consciously think about finger positions while playing, but they can shift attention to these normally automatic processes when teaching a student or working on a difficult passage. This flexibility between conscious and unconscious retrieval allows for both effortless performance and deliberate refinement. The retrieval of emotional memories can be particularly powerful because emotions provide such rich and distinctive cues for memory access. The feeling of falling in love, the sensation of profound grief, or the experience of overwhelming joy create unique internal states that can serve as keys to unlock memories formed during similar emotional experiences. This emotional tagging of memories helps explain why certain feelings can transport you so completely to other times and places. The mystery of memory retrieval ultimately reflects the profound complexity of consciousness itself. The fact that you can close your eyes and deliberately travel backward through time, revisiting conversations from years ago, re-experiencing the taste of your childhood favorite meal, or feeling again the excitement of a long-ago achievement represents one of the most extraordinary capabilities of the human mind. Each act of remembering is a small miracle of reconstruction, as your brain weaves together fragments of stored experience into coherent narratives that feel immediate and real. The memories you retrieve tonight, as you drift towards sleep, the faces and voices and moments that surface in the quiet darkness, are gifts from your past self to your present consciousness, threads in the ongoing tapestry of identity that makes you uniquely, wonderfully you. And as we continue our gentle journey through the landscape of memory, we'll discover how this remarkable system sometimes leads us astray, creating vivid recollections of events that never happened, and how the very fragility that makes memory so malleable also makes it so beautifully human. For now, though, let yourself marvel at this extraordinary gift of retrieval, this ability to reach backward through time and bring the past alive again in the theatre of your mind. Memory isn't always the faithful historian we might hope it to be. Sometimes it's more like that charming friend who tells wonderful stories at dinner parties, embellishing details here and there, occasionally mixing up characters from different tales, and sometimes crafting entirely fictional narratives that sound so convincing even they believe them completely. This is the curious world of false memories, where your brain's remarkable ability to create coherent stories from fragments can sometimes lead you beautifully, confidently astray. Let's begin with something that might surprise you. Right now, you probably have vivid, detailed memories of events that never actually happened. These aren't signs of a failing mind or dishonest nature. They're simply natural consequences of how your memory system works, evidence of its creative power rather than its weakness. False memories feel absolutely real because they're created using the same neural processes that generate accurate memories. Your brain doesn't distinguish between memories based on their factual accuracy. It evaluates them based on their internal consistency and emotional resonance. The creation of false memories reveals something beautiful about how your mind works. Rather than storing experiences like a video camera recording exact footage, your brain acts more like a novelist, weaving together themes, emotions, and details into narratives that feel meaningful and coherent. When pieces of the story are missing, your brain doesn't leave blank spaces. Instead, it fills in gaps with plausible details drawn from other experiences, general knowledge, or cultural expectations. Consider childhood memories, those golden fragments that feel so precious and defining. Many of your earliest recollections might actually be reconstructions based on family photographs, stories told by relatives, or your own later understanding of how childhood should feel. You might have a vivid memory of your third birthday party, complete with visual details of the decorations and the taste of the cake. But that memory might actually be woven together from a photograph you saw years later, stories your parents told, and your general knowledge of what birthday parties are like. This doesn't make these memories less valuable or meaningful. In many ways, it makes them more interesting. Your brain has taken scattered fragments of information and crafted them into a coherent narrative that serves important psychological functions. These reconstructed memories help maintain your sense of continuous identity, connect you to family history, and provide emotional anchors for your understanding of yourself. The social dimension of false memory creation is particularly fascinating. When families gather and share stories, they're not just exchanging information, they're participating in a collaborative memory construction process. One person's recollection can influence another's, gradually shaping shared narratives that might drift quite far from the original events. Uncle Harold's story about the time you caught a fish might grow more elaborate with each telling, until you have a vivid memory of reeling in a massive trout, even though the actual fish was rather modest. These socially constructed memories can feel especially real because they've been reinforced through repetition and shared belief. When multiple people remember the same story, it gains a kind of social validation that makes questioning its accuracy feel almost sacrilegious. The family mythology becomes part of your personal identity, woven into your understanding of who you are and where you come from. Children are particularly susceptible to false memory creation, not because they're more gullible than adults, but because their memory systems are still developing and learning to distinguish between different sources of information. A story told by a parent about the child's early years might become incorporated into the child's own autobiographical memory, creating seamless narratives that blend actual experience with family lore. But adults are far from immune to false memory creation. In fact, certain circumstances can make anyone vulnerable to developing vivid memories of events that never occurred. Stress, suggestion, and the passage of time all contribute to this phenomenon. When you're trying hard to remember something, your brain becomes more willing to accept plausible suggestions as genuine memories, especially if those suggestions come from trusted sources or fit with your existing beliefs and expectations. The therapeutic setting has revealed both the power and the dangers of false memory creation. In the 1000, 982nd, and 1992nd, some therapeutic techniques intended to help people recover repressed memories, sometimes inadvertently created false memories instead. Well-meaning therapists would encourage clients to imagine childhood scenarios, use guided visualization, or employ other suggestive techniques. Over time, these imagined scenarios could transform into vivid, emotionally charged memories that felt completely real to the clients. This phenomenon led to tragic consequences in some cases, as families were torn apart by accusations based on false memories. The controversy surrounding recovered memory therapy highlighted the delicate balance between supporting genuine victims of trauma and avoiding the creation of false memories. It also revealed important truths about how memory works and the care that must be taken when exploring potentially traumatic experiences. The creation of false memories doesn't require dramatic therapeutic interventions. Sometimes, all it takes is a leading question or a subtle suggestion. Research has shown that people can develop false memories for relatively mundane events simply by being asked to imagine them repeatedly. The act of imagination activates similar brain networks to those involved in remembering, and with repetition, imagined events can begin to feel like genuine memories. This malleability of memory has profound implications for eyewitness testimony in legal settings. Two people can witness the same event and later remember it quite differently, each absolutely convinced of their version's accuracy. Post-event information, such as discussions with other witnesses, media coverage, or leading questions from investigators, can gradually alter memories in subtle but important ways. The phenomenon of cryptomnesia reveals another fascinating aspect of false memory creation. This is when you unconsciously plagiarize ideas or memories, genuinely believing that someone else's thoughts or experiences are your own. You might share what you think is an original insight, only to discover later that you read the same idea in a book months ago. Or you might tell a story as if it happened to you, when it actually happened to a friend who shared the experience with you. Cryptomnesia illustrates how memories can become disconnected from their source information over time. Your brain might retain the content of an experience while losing track of where it came from. This source confusion can lead to the genuine belief that someone else's memories are your own, creating false autobiographical memories that feel completely authentic. Dreams contribute their own mysterious influence to false memory creation. The vivid, often bizarre narratives that unfold during sleep can sometimes become confused with waking experiences, especially if the dream content feels emotionally significant or realistic. You might wake up with a strong memory of a conversation that never happened, or feel upset about an argument that took place only in your sleeping mind. The boundary between dreaming and waking memory can become particularly blurred during the transitional periods between sleep and wakefulness. In these liminal states, the normal reality-checking mechanisms that help distinguish between imagination and actual experience may be less active, making it easier for dream content to be encoded as if it were a real memory. False memories can also arise from the brain's tendency to create coherent narratives from fragmentary information. When you try to remember a complex event, your mind might weave together actual fragments with plausible details, creating a story that feels complete and accurate. This narrative construction process is usually helpful, as it allows you to make sense of experiences and extract meaningful lessons from them. But it can also lead to the creation of false details that support the overall story. The emotional intensity of false memories can make them particularly convincing. When your brain creates a false memory, it doesn't just generate factual details, it also generates appropriate emotional responses. A false memory of being embarrassed in school might come complete with the feeling of humiliation, the physical sensation of blushing, and the vivid visual details of classmates laughing. These emotional and sensory components make the false memory feel just as real as genuine experiences. Cultural and historical contexts also influence false memory creation. The stories, myths, and narratives that surround us in our cultural environment can become incorporated into personal memory, creating false memories that align with cultural expectations or historical narratives. You might develop vivid memories of historical events you never actually witnessed, or remember personal experiences that conform to cultural stereotypes about childhood, family relationships, or life transitions. The media plays a particularly powerful role in false memory creation. Repeated exposure to images, stories, or narratives through television, movies, books, or social media can create false memories of personal experiences. You might remember seeing a news event unfold live on television when you actually saw it in a movie or read about it online. The emotional impact and visual richness of media representations can make them feel like personal memories. Nostalgia, that bittersweet longing for the past, often involves a kind of collaborative process between accurate memories and false memory creation. The golden glow that seems to surround childhood memories, the sense that summers were longer and friendships deeper, might reflect your brain's tendency to enhance positive details while diminishing negative ones. Over time, this selective enhancement can create memories that are more beautiful and meaningful than the original experiences, but also less factually accurate. The creation of false memories isn't necessarily a problem to be solved. In many cases, these constructed memories serve important psychological functions. They help maintain a coherent sense of identity, provide emotional comfort during difficult times, and create meaningful narratives that give shape to your life story. A false memory of receiving encouragement from a beloved grandparent might provide genuine comfort and motivation, even if the specific conversation never took place. The key is developing a healthy relationship with the uncertainty inherent in memory. Rather than demanding perfect accuracy from your recollections, you might instead appreciate them as creative interpretations of your life experience, shaped by emotion, meaning, and the ongoing process of identity construction. This doesn't mean that factual accuracy is unimportant, but rather that memory serves multiple functions beyond simple historical record keeping. Understanding false memory creation can also help you become more compassionate toward others whose memories differ from your own. When family members remember shared events differently, or when friends have conflicting recollections of past conversations, it's not necessarily because someone is lying or has a poor memory. More likely, each person's memory system has constructed a version of events that makes sense from their particular perspective and serves their individual psychological needs. The phenomenon of false memories also reveals the importance of external records for maintaining accurate historical information. Photographs, journals, videos, and other documentation can serve as anchors that help distinguish between accurate memories and creative reconstructions. But even these external records must be interpreted carefully, as they represent selective snapshots of experience rather than complete accounts of what happened. The collaborative nature of memory construction suggests that communities and families can work together to maintain more accurate collective memories. By sharing different perspectives on shared experiences, comparing notes, and acknowledging the limitations of individual memory, groups can create richer, more nuanced understandings of their shared history. This collaborative approach honors both the creative nature of memory and the importance of factual accuracy. False memories can also serve as windows into your current concerns, values, and psychological state. The particular false memories you're likely to create might reflect your current emotional needs, unresolved conflicts, or deeply held beliefs about yourself and the world. In this sense, false memories aren't just errors to be corrected, but potentially meaningful expressions of your inner psychological landscape. The study of false memories has also revealed important truths about the nature of consciousness and identity. If your sense of self is largely constructed from memories, and if some of those memories are false, then in what sense are you the same person who lived through all those experiences? These philosophical questions don't have easy answers, but they invite deeper reflection on the relationship between memory, identity, and truth. The creation of false memories continues throughout life, as your brain constantly updates and reconstructs your personal narrative. Each time you remember something, you're potentially altering it slightly, incorporating new information, current perspectives, or recent experiences. This ongoing process of memory updating means that your recollections are always evolving, always being subtly reshaped by the person you're becoming. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about false memories is that they reveal the creative, meaning-making nature of human consciousness. Your brain isn't content to simply store and retrieve factual information. Instead, it's constantly weaving experience into narrative, creating stories that provide coherence, meaning, and emotional resonance. Sometimes these stories correspond closely to historical facts, and sometimes they're more like beautiful fiction based on true events. This creative dimension of memory suggests that accuracy and meaning might sometimes be in tension with each other. A perfectly accurate memory might be less psychologically useful than a slightly embellished version that captures the emotional truth of an experience more effectively. Your brain seems to understand this intuitively, prioritizing meaning and coherence over strict factual accuracy. The false memories you carry with you aren't bugs in the system. They're features that reveal the remarkable creativity and adaptability of human consciousness. They show how your mind transforms raw experience into personal meaning, how it fills gaps with plausible details, and how it creates coherent narratives from the fragments of lived experience. In their own way, false memories might be just as valuable as accurate ones, serving as evidence of your brain's remarkable ability to create meaning from the chaos of experience. As we continue our gentle exploration of memory's mysteries, we'll discover how the system that creates such vivid false memories is also capable of remarkable feats of accurate recall, and how the same flexibility that allows for memory errors also enables learning, adaptation, and growth. For now, though, rest in the knowledge that your memories, whether perfectly accurate or creatively embellished, are all part of the beautiful, complex story that makes you uniquely yourself. The dance between remembering and forgetting reveals one of memory's most elegant secrets. Forgetting isn't a failure of the system, but rather one of its most sophisticated features. Your brain doesn't simply lose information through carelessness or decay, like books falling from overstuffed shelves. Instead, it actively curates your memories, making deliberate decisions about what to retain, what to modify, and what to gently release. This process of forgetting is so essential to healthy mental function that without it, you would be overwhelmed by trivial details and unable to focus on what truly matters. Imagine for a moment if you could remember everything with perfect clarity. Every conversation you've ever had, every face you've ever seen, every mundane detail of every ordinary day. It might sound appealing at first, like having a superpower that would make you incredibly knowledgeable and never caught off guard by forgotten information. But this total recall would actually be a kind of cognitive prison. trapping you in an avalanche of irrelevant details that would make it nearly impossible to think clearly or focus on the present moment. Your brain understands this intuitively, which is why it has evolved sophisticated mechanisms for deciding what deserves permanent storage and what can be safely discarded. This process begins immediately as experiences unfold, with most sensory information being filtered out within seconds. The feeling of your clothes against your skin, the background sounds of traffic or air conditioning, the countless visual details that surround you right now, all are registered briefly and then allowed to fade, making space for information that might actually be useful. But forgetting operates on multiple timescales and serves different functions at each level. There's immediate forgetting, which clears away sensory clutter and irrelevant details. There's gradual forgetting, which allows older memories to fade naturally as they become less relevant to current circumstances. And there's motivated forgetting, where your mind actively works to reduce access to painful or traumatic memories that might interfere with healthy functioning. The forgetting curve, first described by German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus over a century ago, reveals the natural rhythm of memory decay. Most new information is forgotten rapidly at first, with the steepest decline occurring within the first hour after learning. The rate of forgetting then slows down, creating a curve that levels off over time. This pattern suggests that your brain is constantly evaluating new information, rapidly discarding what seems unimportant while giving potentially valuable information more time to prove its worth. But forgetting isn't simply about the passage of time. The memories that fade and those that persist follow patterns that reveal your brain's sophisticated understanding of what matters. Emotionally significant events resist forgetting, as do experiences that are repeated frequently or connected to existing knowledge networks. Information that fits into meaningful patterns or serves practical purposes tends to stick around, while isolated facts with no obvious relevance tend to disappear. This selective nature of forgetting helps explain why you might forget where you put your keys this morning but still remember the lyrics to songs from decades ago. The key's location was arbitrary and temporary, while those song lyrics became embedded in emotional memories and were reinforced through repetition. Your brain made an implicit judgment about which information deserved long-term storage and which could be safely discarded. Sleep plays a crucial role in this curation process, acting as a kind of overnight editor that decides which of the day's experiences deserve permanent filing. During sleep, your brain doesn't just consolidate important memories. It also actively forgets unnecessary information, clearing mental space for tomorrow's experiences. This active forgetting during sleep might explain why problems that seemed overwhelming before bed sometimes feel more manageable in the morning. Your sleeping brain has been editing your mental landscape, emphasizing what's important and letting go of what's not. The social dimension of forgetting adds another layer of complexity to this process. Shared memories that are discussed and reinforced within social groups tend to resist forgetting, while experiences that aren't shared or validated by others may fade more quickly. This social curation of memory helps explain why family stories and cultural narratives persist across generations, while personal experiences that aren't part of larger social narratives may be forgotten. But forgetting isn't just about letting go of unimportant information. It also serves the crucial function of allowing you to update your understanding of the world as circumstances change. If you remembered every outdated fact, every superseded belief, and every former opinion with perfect clarity, it would be difficult to adapt to new information or change your mind about important issues. Forgetting old information makes space for new learning and allows your worldview to evolve. This updating function of forgetting is particularly important for interpersonal relationships. If you remembered every slight, every disappointment, and every moment of conflict with perfect vividness, it would be nearly impossible to maintain close relationships over time. The gradual fading of negative emotional memories allows relationships to heal and grow, while the persistence of positive memories helps maintain bonds of affection and commitment. Children's relationship with forgetting reveals interesting patterns that change as the brain develops. Very young children seem to live almost entirely in the present moment, with limited ability to maintain detailed memories of past experiences. This childhood amnesia for early experiences might actually be adaptive, allowing the developing mind to focus on immediate learning and exploration rather than being weighed down by accumulated memories. As children grow older, their capacity for retention increases, but they still show remarkable ability to let go of traumatic or negative experiences that might overwhelm an adult mind. This resilience partly reflects the natural forgetting processes that help protect developing minds from being traumatized by experiences they're not yet equipped to understand or integrate. The relationship between forgetting and creativity reveals another important function of memory's selective nature. Creative insights often emerge from the ability to let go of conventional thinking patterns and make unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. If your mind were cluttered with perfect recall of every detail and every conventional approach to problems, it might be harder to think outside established patterns. Forgetting can create the mental space necessary for creative recombination of ideas. When you forget the specific details of how problems were solved in the past, you become more open to discovering new solutions. This creative forgetting might explain why taking breaks from difficult problems often leads to breakthrough insights. The forgetting that occurs during rest periods might clear away mental clutter and allow new perspectives to emerge. The phenomenon of motivated forgetting reveals how your emotional system can influence what you remember and what you let go. Painful memories don't just fade passively over time. Your mind actively works to reduce their emotional impact and accessibility. This isn't the same as repression, which involves pushing memories out of consciousness entirely. Instead, it's a gradual process of emotional dampening that allows difficult experiences to be integrated into your life story without overwhelming your current emotional state. This emotional regulation through forgetting is essential for psychological health. Without it, every loss, disappointment, and trauma would remain as fresh and painful as when it first occurred. The ability to let the emotional intensity of negative memories fade while retaining whatever lessons they contain allows you to learn from difficult experiences without being defined by them. But motivated forgetting can sometimes go too far, leading to the suppression of memories that might actually be important to remember. The desire to avoid painful thoughts can sometimes extend to avoiding the processing and integration that would allow healing to occur. Finding the right balance between protective forgetting and necessary remembering is one of the ongoing challenges of mental health. The forgetting that occurs in normal aging follows predictable patterns that reveal the underlying structure of memory systems. Older adults often report that recent events are harder to remember, while distant memories remain vivid. This pattern reflects the different ways that various types of memories are stored and maintained over time. Well-consolidated memories from decades past may be more resistant to forgetting than newer memories that haven't yet undergone complete consolidation. But age-related forgetting isn't uniformly negative. The accumulated wisdom that comes with age partly reflects the selective forgetting of trivial details combined with the retention of meaningful patterns and insights. Older adults often show enhanced ability to focus on what's most important, partly because their memory systems have become more selective about what deserves attention and retention. The forgetting that occurs in various forms of dementia reveals how different memory systems can be affected in different ways. Alzheimer's disease, for example, tends to affect recent memories more than remote ones, and explicit memories more than implicit ones. Understanding these patterns has helped researchers develop better strategies for supporting people with memory disorders and has revealed important truths about how different types of memories are stored and maintained. Deliberate forgetting represents one of the most intriguing aspects of memory control. Under certain circumstances, you can actually choose to forget information, though this process is more complex than simply deciding not to think about something. Effective forgetting often requires redirecting attention to other topics, engaging in activities that create interference with unwanted memories, or using specific mental strategies that reduce the accessibility of particular information. The ability to deliberately forget can be therapeutic in situations where intrusive memories interfere with daily functioning. Learning to reduce access to traumatic memories while still retaining the important lessons they contain can be an important part of healing and recovery. This doesn't mean denying that difficult experiences occurred, but rather reducing their emotional impact and intrusive quality. Cultural attitudes toward forgetting vary widely, with some traditions viewing it as a weakness or failure, while others see it as a natural and healthy part of life. In cultures that emphasize ancestor worship or historical continuity, forgetting might be seen as a form of betrayal or disrespect. In cultures that focus more on present moment awareness or personal growth, forgetting might be viewed as necessary for psychological health and spiritual development. The relationship between forgetting and forgiveness reveals deep connections between memory processes and moral development. True forgiveness often involves a kind of motivated forgetting, where the emotional intensity of hurtful memories is allowed to fade while the relationship is rebuilt on new foundations. This doesn't mean pretending that harmful actions never occurred, but rather choosing not to rehearse and reinforce the negative emotions associated with those memories. Technological advances have created new challenges for natural forgetting processes. Digital devices can store vast amounts of information indefinitely, creating external memory systems that never forget. While this can be useful for accessing important information, it can also interfere with the natural forgetting processes that help maintain psychological health. The ability to instantly access old photos, messages, or social media posts can sometimes prevent the natural fading of memories that might be better left in the past. The phenomenon of collective forgetting reveals how societies and cultures actively choose what to remember and what to let fade from public consciousness. Historical events, cultural practices, and social movements can be forgotten not through natural memory decay, but through deliberate choices about what deserves continued attention and what can be allowed to recede into the background. This collective curation of memory plays important roles in maintaining social cohesion and cultural identity, but collective forgetting can also serve less positive functions, allowing societies to avoid confronting difficult truths about their past. The balance between remembering important historical lessons and moving forward from past traumas is an ongoing challenge for communities and nations, reflecting on a larger scale the same tensions that individuals face in managing their personal memories. The forgetting that occurs in different states of consciousness reveals how memory processes can be influenced by changes in brain activity. The memories formed during dreams, for example, are often forgotten upon waking, possibly because the brain states involved in dreaming are so different from waking consciousness. Similarly, experiences that occur during altered states induced by meditation, medication, or other means might be more likely to be forgotten when normal consciousness returns. This state-dependent forgetting suggests that some memories might not be truly lost, but rather stored in ways that make them accessible only under specific circumstances. The memories that seem to disappear might sometimes be retrieved when the right cues or brain states are present, revealing the complex relationship between memory storage and retrieval. The evolutionary perspective on forgetting suggests that this process serves important adaptive functions that have been shaped by natural selection. The ability to forget irrelevant details while retaining important information would have provided significant survival advantages for our ancestors. Similarly, the ability to let go of negative emotions while retaining the lessons from dangerous experiences would have supported both individual survival and group cooperation. This evolutionary perspective helps explain why forgetting feels natural and automatic rather than effortful. Your brain has been shaped by millions of years of evolution to be exceptionally good at deciding what to remember and what to forget. Trusting these natural processes, rather than fighting against them, might be the key to maintaining healthy memory function throughout life. The relationship between forgetting and identity formation reveals how memory processes contribute to the ongoing construction of self. The experiences you forget and those you retain gradually shape your sense of who you are and what matters to you. By allowing certain memories to fade while reinforcing others, you actively participate in creating your personal narrative and defining your identity. This suggests that forgetting isn't just about losing information, it's about actively sculpting your sense of self. The person you become is shaped not just by what you remember, but by what you choose to let go. In this sense, healthy forgetting might be just as important as good remembering for maintaining a coherent and adaptive sense of identity. The mystery of forgetting ultimately reflects the sophisticated intelligence of memory systems that have been refined over millions of years of evolution. Your brain doesn't just passively lose information through decay or damage, it actively curates your memories, making countless decisions about what to keep, what to modify, and what to release. This ongoing process of selective forgetting creates the mental space necessary for learning, growth, and adaptation. As you settle into rest tonight, this remarkable process of forgetting will continue its quiet work, gently clearing away the mental clutter of the day while preserving what truly matters. The details you can't quite remember, the worries that seem less pressing than they did this morning, the minor irritations that have already begun to fade, all represent your memory system's wise understanding of what deserves your mental energy and what can be safely released into the flowing river of time. Tomorrow, you'll wake with a mind that has been subtly but importantly changed by this overnight process of selective forgetting. Some of today's experiences will feel as vivid as ever, while others will have softened around the edges, and still others will have quietly slipped away entirely. This isn't a failure of memory, but rather its greatest success, creating the perfect balance between remembering what serves you and releasing what no longer does. The delicate interplay between memory and emotion reveals one of the most beautiful aspects of how your mind works. Memories aren't just factual records stored in neutral filing cabinets. They're living experiences infused with feeling, colored by mood, and shaped by the emotional landscapes in which they were born. This intimate connection between memory and emotion helps explain why certain recollections can transport you so completely, why some experiences stick with crystal clarity while others fade like watercolors in rain, and why the simple act of remembering can sometimes move you to tears or laughter decades after the original event. Your emotional system doesn't just add flavor to memories, it actively participates in every stage of the memory process, from the initial encoding of experiences to their long-term storage and eventual retrieval. When something emotionally significant happens, your brain essentially stamps it with a priority label, ensuring that it receives special treatment in the memory formation process. This is why you can probably remember exactly where you were when you heard important news, felt profound joy, or experienced significant loss, while struggling to recall mundane details from the same time periods. The amygdala, those two small almond-shaped structures tucked deep in your brain, serve as emotional significance detectors, constantly evaluating incoming experiences for their potential importance. When something emotionally meaningful occurs, the amygdala releases chemical signals that enhance memory consolidation, essentially telling the rest of the brain, pay attention to this. This matters. This emotional enhancement of memory formation is so powerful that it can create vivid, lasting memories from brief moments of intense feeling. But the relationship between emotion and memory is far more complex than simple enhancement. Different emotions affect memory in different ways, creating a rich tapestry of influences that shape how experiences are encoded, stored, and retrieved. Joy tends to broaden the scope of attention and memory, helping you notice and remember more details from positive experiences. Fear narrows focus to the most immediately relevant information, creating memories that might be intensely vivid for central details while remaining fuzzy for peripheral information. Sadness affects memory in its own unique way, often enhancing attention to detail and creating more accurate, if sometimes more negative, recollections. The melancholy mood that accompanies sadness might actually improve certain types of memory processing, leading to more careful attention to environmental cues and more thorough processing of information. This might explain why people sometimes report that they see things more clearly during periods of sadness, even though the emotional experience is painful. The phenomenon of mood-congruent memory reveals how your current emotional state can influence which memories become accessible. When you're feeling happy, positive memories become easier to retrieve, while negative experiences might remain in the background. Conversely, when you're sad or anxious, those emotional states can act like keys that unlock memories with similar emotional signatures. This creates feedback loops where emotions influence memory retrieval, which in turn affects mood, which influences what you remember next. Understanding these mood-dependent memory effects can provide insight into emotional cycles and suggest strategies for managing difficult feelings. If you're stuck in a negative mood that keeps triggering sad memories, deliberately engaging in activities that promote positive emotions might help break the cycle by making happier memories more accessible. Similarly, being aware that your current emotional state influences what you remember can help you maintain perspective during both difficult and joyful periods. The emotional enhancement of memory extends beyond the moment of initial encoding to influence the consolidation process that unfolds over hours, days, and even weeks after an experience. During sleep, when your brain sorts through the day's experiences and decides what deserves long-term storage, emotional memories often receive preferential treatment. The dreams that occur during REM sleep might actually reflect this emotional memory processing, as your brain works to integrate significant experiences into existing memory networks. This emotional prioritization during consolidation helps explain why you tend to remember the emotional highlights of your life more clearly than routine experiences. The first day of school, graduation ceremonies, weddings, the birth of children, moments of loss or triumph, all receive special treatment during the consolidation process because of their emotional significance. These emotionally enhanced memories become anchor points in your personal narrative, defining moments that help structure your sense of identity and life story. But emotional memories aren't always accurate memories. The same processes that make emotional experiences so vivid and lasting can also make them more susceptible to distortion over time. Strong emotions can create such compelling memory experiences that they feel absolutely certain, even when they contain factual errors or have been influenced by subsequent information. This emotional conviction can make it particularly difficult to recognize when emotional memories have been modified or embellished through the normal reconstructive processes of remembering. The relationship between trauma and memory reveals both the protective and problematic